Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to seam two pieces of crochet together using the mattress stitch. So you'll want a tapestry needle and some yarn. Typically you will want to use the same color yarn as the pieces you are sewing together, but I'm using this bright pink just so you guys can see the stitching and where everything is going. So I'm going to pick up one piece. I'm going to insert my needle into the bottom portion where I want to start my sewing. I'm going to leave a bit of a tail here, and then on my second piece I am going to go from behind to the front in the bottom corner where I want to start my sewing as well. So at this point we are basically going to do like a zigzag. So I'm going to pick up this piece, go from behind to the front, and then I'm going to go back onto this piece and go from behind to the front. So I'm basically going in a zigzag motion, and I'm just going to continue to do that all the way up. And then once I have a bit of the pieces sewn together, I'm going to grab the tail just to hold it down, and then I'm going to grab this and pull it tight. And you can see it basically, it's really hidden in there, and it's basically just pulling the two pieces together, and it's a very flat join. There's no bump or ridge there when you sew it together. So after every, I'd say, inch or so that you have sewn, just keep pulling it tight like that, especially if you're sewing together something much larger than this. Typically you probably are. So then you would just continue sewing back and forth, and then every so often just pulling that up so it cinches the two pieces together. So when you're sewing two edges together, you are going to do the exact same method. It's just a little trickier because here we can see each and every single stitch, and we're going to do one to one. But on the edges it can be a little difficult because you just kind of have these gaps here and you're not really sure where to sew. So the first thing I recommend is using stitch markers to basically make sure you have an even seam. So since I'm starting down here, I wouldn't put a stitch marker here, but I would kind of lay everything together, make sure all the rows are even, and then maybe after every 5 or 6 rows put a stitch marker there, and then make sure all these rows are even, put a stitch marker up here, and so on and so forth, just so you have this little piece right here to work on. So you can make sure that this is all evenly seamed, take out the stitch marker, and then work on your next portion of crochet. So down here I'm going to find the very bottom corner of this first piece, and I like to always go through 2 loops if I can. So I'm going to pull that through and leave a bit of a tail, and then I'm going to find the bottom corner of this piece, and pull that through. So now I'm going to do that zigzag motion, so I'm going to go back onto this piece. So this is double crochet. I know all stitches are different, but I like to go in between the rows, if you will. So you can see here, this is like dividing the 2 rows, and usually you can find 2 loops there. So that's 2 loops, and that's in between the rows. So I'll go through this one and then back over here. If you can see that, I know it's white. This is dividing the rows. So I'll go through here. Again, I like to try to go through 2 loops if I can. And then I'll just keep doing that all the way up. So I'm going from the back of the work to the front of the work each time I do this. So if I had stitch markers, I would probably work up to the stitch marker and then hold this tight and then pull it so it's seamed together. If you have like a really long stretch of this and you try to pull it, it's going to be really difficult. So just try to pull it every so often when you can. So here's the seam for that. You can see it's pretty invisible. If you're working with 2 different colors or a bunch of different colors like this, I would try to use one of the lightest colors. So I would probably use white, maybe even gray to seam this together. You can change colors while you seam, but that is a lot of work. So after you have everything seamed up like this, you will need to knot and weave in your ends. So this is the first end I have here. And I'm just going to go back to this side and then pull that tight. And then I would make a knot here. So basically what I do is I put my tapestry needle in. Since this is too short, I'm just gonna pull it out and then wrap my yarn around my needle twice and then stick it back onto my needle, and then I'm just gonna pull it through my work and those loops that I made on the needle, and that will make a nice knot there. And then I would just weave this in at the very end. So that is how you use the mattress stitch to seam 2 pieces of crochet together.